of.
The answer is very simple in one word: the mismanagement of the economy by the Akufo-Addo administration. Because a lot of the increases, Ghana Post pays a lot of airlines for the transporting of the parcels that we send to Europe and the United States, and we pay that in dollars. So when you saw the mismanagement when Ken Ofori-Atta, Abena and co were at the finance ministry and Dr. Bawumia in charge of the economic management team, you then saw that...
Respectfully, Minister, stop it right there. Just go straight to your question and answer, and don't be name calling. You understand? Minister, please answer the question. Oh, when this was there, Minister, I don't think that is how we should be here. You are here, you have been here before. I have been where you are before. Let's just go straight to the point.
I'm guided, Chairman.
Thank you.
So in 2023, when the CD depreciated, you realize that because we're paying in dollars, if you were paying a fee of $100 to an airline and the exchange rate was 8, our expenditure would have been 800 cedis. And then when it went to 16 in 2023, you then have the challenge that your expenditure now becomes 1,600. So that's what accounted for that. So it's the forex losses, yeah. But I'm sure that when you see the 2025 financials, you realize that even though we are doing more volumes, our expenditure would have dropped, because now with a better, stronger CD that's trading very favorably, you realize that our forex expenditure will be better.
Services, and Honorable OPK will. Honorable Minister, we have a lot of things to clear with you before we start. And let me start with non-payment of yearly advance of $6 million US. And I'm quoting from the report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana, ministries, departments, and other agencies for the year ended 31st December 2024. Now, the ministry, there was a contract of commercialization of e-government infrastructure between Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. That was a name during her government's time. Now we have changed the name.
You said what?
No. And infrastructure. And Lebara Ghana Limited, signed on August 15, 2018, says that during the term of the initial 5-year period of the contract, Lebara Ghana shall make an advance payment of $2 million US for the first year, and thereafter a yearly advance payment of $1 million US to Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. Pursuant to clause 4.5 of the principal contract, Lebara Ghana Limited assigned all its rights and responsibilities to Smart Infraco. We noted that between 2020 and 2024, Smart Infraco, a special purpose vehicle, failed to remit to the ministry a total amount of $6 million as yearly advance payment, which becomes due on the first quarter of each year. And then it has the years over here. 2020, $2 million not paid. 2021, $1 million not paid. 2022, $1 million not paid. 2023, same way. 2024, same way. We recommend that the Chief Director should recover the total amount of $6 million US with interest at the prevailing Bank of Ghana rate from Smart Infraco, failing which remedies as stipulated in the contract should be activated. Minister, what says you?
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, this contract actually started in 2015 when I served on the board of the National IT Agency. In fact, Madam Rita Shraha, who is today Managing Director, was also on the board at the time when that board approved for the then MD to engage Libara. The contract was not consummated before we left office in 2016, and the Akufo-Addo government took the decision to sign with Libara in 2018. The terms of the contract are as you have read out in the Auditor General's report. However, we have been appraised of addendums to the original contract. Addendums which have sought to alter the letter and spirit of the original contract. The original contract was for Libara Ghana, a private company, to commercialize the excess capacity of NITA, the National IT Agency. There had been about $300 million worth of investment by the John Mahama I administration. And so we asked that the infrastructure of NITA should be commercialized and there should be a profit sharing between the private entity and NITA. However, we were very clear that it should be on new business. So NITA already had a number of government agencies as its client. That business was supposed to be exempt from this commercialization because this new entity was not going to be bringing in this new business. But for example, on the Eastern Corridor Fiber, you had 48 core, and at that time we were using less than 6 core. And so to commercialize the rest of the infrastructure, we said we needed a private vehicle to do this. There were 120 LTE base stations which we thought could be commercialized. Mr. Chair, or Madam Chair, it's become evident to us that there have been 2 addendums that have changed the contract, handed over fully the entire government infrastructure to this private entity. In fact, an SPV was set up called Smart Infraco that took over all rights of Libara Ghana. Now, I have referred this to the Attorney General for his advice, and so, but the issues we have raised for the Attorney General to advise us on is that the terms of the original contract stated that Libara could not assign more than 20% of their rights to a third party. Now, the current situation is an SPV has been set up called Smart Infraco that has taken over 100% of Libara's rights. The other issue that arises is the fact that when we took over the ministry and there was the need to change passwords for some government agencies, it became clear to me, and unfortunately my Director General for NITA is not here, he's a bit under the weather. NITA had no access to the National Data Center.
Minister, you mentioned that the terms had changed in one breath, and in another breath you also said that they had also amended the main contract. So isn't the change of terms, wasn't it as a result of the amendment of the original contract?
Exactly so, Madam Chair. But again, I leave this for the advice of the Attorney General and the lawyers, that you cannot alter the terms of a parent contract in such a manner that vitiates the intent of the original contract. Because the original contract said you could not assign more than 20%. Now you have a situation where you've done an addendum that has taken over the entire rights and handed them over. So again, that's a question for the lawyers to determine if that is legally right and permissible by our laws. But the change in the terms are on the basis of that addendum. Now the question is, against the spirit and letter of the original contract, is that admissible? The fact that it was signed, is it legally tenable, and is that's a matter for the Attorney General that we've written to. But like the point I was making was when we took over office and when I was appointed in February 2025, we realized that NITA, the National IT Agency, had absolutely no access to the National Data Center, and for them to be able to effect the changes, they needed to make a request to the private entity, Smart Infraco. that I called the meeting immediately and requested for a meeting, and now NITA has root access to the National Data Center and has physical access as well to the data center. On the issue of the 6 million, that was part of the original contract. Now, my understanding from the briefings we've received is that Smart Infraco says they spent money doing rectification of the infrastructure that they acquired. And for that reason, they are offsetting it against what was supposed to be deliverables to NITA. My position as minister has been clear. You have an obligation under the contract, meet those obligations. Pay the $6 million to NITA. Then submit your claims for any rectifications that you did. Let that be authenticated and verified. And then let's see the terms of the contract. Did the terms of the agreement say that you were supposed to take the infrastructure in situ the way it was? Or were you supposed to take it and rectify it at the expense of the state? Those are questions that need to be settled. So this 6 million is owed the state, and we've written to the Attorney General to advise us on the steps to reclaim the $6 million. But Mr. Chair, the last point I will make is that I believe that this matter is of grave national importance, because the infrastructure we talk about is our national data center. That's where all our critical assets sit. As we speak, the country is aware of what's going on with the Ministry of Health and the LIMS contract. Mr. Chair, the Ministry of Health has reached out to us to provide some support for the stopgap measure they want to do. Now, we are being told that that contract, which is not being, or this service that we are going to render from the National Data Center to the Ministry of Health, must be signed with this private entity and payments made to the private entity. And so I have written officially to the Director General of NITA, instructing him to engage the Ministry of Health directly and not through the private entity, because the asset is the property of the Ghanaian people, paid for in full by the Ghanaian people with our taxes, and this is another government agency we are offering services to. If any payments will be made, it will be made to NITA directly. The terms of the contract must be that Smart Infraco should go and bring new contracts and new jobs and share revenue, and not that they sit back and then our government asset has been handed over to a private entity and they are commercializing it and taking all the revenue. This is what I inherited, and this is what we are trying to fix.
Thank you very much, Minister. I can understand the explanations you are giving to this committee. Our concern has to do with public funds that ought to come to the public. Whatever you are suggesting sounds to me like a policy direction that you want to undertake. When the report came before this committee, we wrote to the companies involved, and they have also given us their response. But just so we are all on the same page and we do not take this thing so lightly, I want to read to you that per the report from Smart Infraco, they claim that clause 6 required that Smart Infraco restored all infrastructure within 12 months using its own capital. They also claim in clause 6.4 that the company was allowed to deduct capital expenditure, direct cost, and taxes before calculating revenue share. And in clause 12 of the same report, it also states that there was a second addendum which overrides the original contract in case of inconsistencies. And I seem to understand your concern with changes in contracts and all of that, but with a few contract law that we've learned, this is a clear case of novation. One company, one private company moving to the other. Because they are not here, and because it also involves some legal documents and all of that, that is why we're also reading to you the response that you have given to this committee. So I want to find out from you if you have an idea of what the company is saying, and that the clauses that they claim, especially clause 6 and 12, are contained in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've just pulled out the contract, and I'm going to read the original contract, the parent contract. I'm going to read clause 4, and the heading for 4 is cost and risk. 4.1 says, save the procurement of an irrevocable bank guarantee or letters of credit. Libara Ghana shall undertake the obligations of this contract project at its own cost and risk. So now this means that whatever cost was supposed to arise out of the execution of the contract, this is clearly stated here, and like you said, contract law, clause 4.1, would be at the instance of Libara Ghana, the parent company, the company that we signed the contract with. So, you see, we need to be minded as public office holders that whilst we want to support private business, we cannot do it at the expense of the Ghanaian taxpayer. So if the original contract says that any cost and risk associated with the execution of this contract is at the expense of the private party, and then a minister takes a decision to vary that in an addendum and say that she's transferring that cost and risk from the private entity to the Ghanaian taxpayer, there must be proper justification for same. Unless you show me what it is, I, as minister, with the evidence available to me, still hold the view that whatever was agreed in the parent contract, which is the 6 million we're talking about here for the first 5 years, should be paid to the tax kitty. If there are any conversations to be had about whether there's an addendum that has shifted liability for cost, we can then have that conversation. But to deprive the taxpayer of this anticipated revenue on the back of a policy directive, I think may be problematic.
See, Minister, I mean, we are not here to want to defend any past government official, and I can understand. I mean, once the new government takes over, there's a new direction, and from how you speak, we realize that probably maybe you would want NITA to take a different direction with respect to this contract. But once the state has a contract with some parties, I can see the original contract, which was signed somewhere in 2018 with Libara, is what you are making references to. But I also want to bring to your attention that in 2020, this same contract was novated to Smart Infraco Limited. And this was with approval of all parties. And of course, in terms of contracts, addendums and variations are always, they come in. I mean, we can vary a contract subject to the fact that all parties have come into a certain agreement. And I also know that you are aware, because we have with us a due diligence report that was conducted by Tata Communications Limited, and we've been provided with that report, and I'm sure it's going to help us moving forward. But so that you know that addendums in contracts are not illegal. They are not unlawful. It happens every day in contracts. And so let's speak to what exactly we have that got varied along the line, along the value chain in this contract. And I think that it will help the committee. Thank you very much.
I must also admit that in the response that they gave to us, Smart Infraco admits that they owe. So it is not like they are not acknowledging that they owe government. From their reports, the report that they gave to us on page 5 of 8, it says that Smart Infraco acknowledges the outstanding amount of $1 million, in addition to a balance of $162,518, and which has been featured in the accounts and submitted to the ministry. So there is some liability that they themselves have acknowledged. But from what I read from their reports, that the addendum necessitated a change in the advance payment. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I have read, they are saying that the addendum that they made to the original contract, the variation that they made to the original contract, necessitated a change in the advance payment. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. But this is what is in front of him. But you can correct me if I'm wrong, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, you are absolutely correct that that is the position of Smart Infraco. But that's why I started by saying that this is not about what Sam George's position is or what Smart Infraco's position is. It's about what the position of the law is. Nobody has said that addendums to a law, to a contract are illegal. I have never made that claim here. Addendums are a legal part of the legal process of contracting. However, the question we're raising is that when addendums change substantially what the original contract was, we have chosen to subject that to the Attorney General's advice. And that's why I'm saying that if today you have a report which we are not privy to, the document you reference as a response from Smart Infraco to the committee, we haven't seen at the ministry. But if in that they admit some liability, it comes back to support my initial submission and position that the 6 million ought to be paid to the states. When that is paid to the state, they can make whatever claims, because let's not forget, the claims are now being made on the back of the addendum. Not because the parent contract says that all the cost and risk should be borne by the private entity. Now they are saying that the addendum allows for them to move that liability to government. Because that's why they are saying that they don't owe 6 million. The cost that they claim they spent in rectifying the infrastructure is the reason why, in their response to you, I want to believe they are saying that liability is not 6 million, but 1 million and about 160,000, if I heard you right, Madam Chair. And so that's why I'm saying that claim must be submitted. That claim cannot be made by the private entity and then say that we have decided that government owes us this, so we are deducting it from government's money, and this is what we will give. No, that power does not rest with a private entity.
As for that one, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. And so the point is
that we should validate the costs that they claim they charge, the profits that they earned, and then to find out truly if that was so, and then we can make progress and see where they owe us and then they need to pay, or where, we need to offset them with one thing or the other. But truly, I understand that we need to validate the costs involved.
That's the point of the ministry.
I have gone through the reports myself, and then in a couple of, in certain years, you see the revenue and then you see the costs. They charge the costs that they said they have incurred to the revenue, and we end up, when I say we, I mean government ends up owing them some money. So it is, in the light of all that is happening, I strongly believe that yes, we should validate all the costs that they charge to the revenues that came in, and where they ought to pay, they pay. And so as for we validating those terms, and in terms of the costs that they applied to the revenues after the addendum or the renewal, the tweaking of the contracts, I believe that we should look at it and put it in perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy that we are in agreement that there needs to be a validation of the claims, and then we on the back of that, decide how to proceed. But bottom line is, so long as there is an obligation to the state, that must be met. Because if you don't meet that, then, as the auditors have indicated, we will begin to charge interest at prevailing bank rates because you are holding government revenue. So it's best that they submit what is owed to the state whilst we do the validation. Because if the longer they hold it, to settle the Auditor General, we would have to surcharge them the interest on the monies that they are holding at the prevailing bank rate.
Yeah, thank you. But, Minister, are you able to provide this committee copies of the original contract, the various variations that happen along the value chain, I mean, i.e. the various addendums, the first one and the second one, so that we can run that alongside the response that they gave us and the due diligence, so that the committee can arrive? We need those documents from you. Can you assure the committee of these documents?
Madam Chair, if I'm a minister for digital technology, if you would allow me apply digital technology, I can actually send it to you electronically right now.
We will be very
before
grateful.
I rise from the chair.
We'll be very
and you can have the secretariat print. So I'm just going to forward it to Madam Chair and
yes.
and yourself
All
immediately.
right. Thank you.
You see, honorable members, what we need to look at is what the auditors recommended. So whether there's been a change here or there, what the auditors are saying is Smart Infraco owes 6 million. Pay the money, and then afterwards we'll look at anything else that they have. Now the second question. Okay, OPK, then ask your second question. Okay, hold on. Hold on.
The minister has just sworn an oath. He cannot You are disrupting our meeting.
Honorable, you are a member of, you are a very good, you are a solid member of this committee. We appreciate that. But you just took an oath. Okay. And that, yes. So, initially, your minister wanted to find out from you if you were part of him or you'll be here. And you opted to be there. And you have taken that oath. So be there.
Chairman, like my colleague OPK Riley said, I am a member of the committee. And we are speaking to an audit report. But I heard my colleague reading from a report from the company that we are discussing. A report to him alone, and not to all the members of the committee. If you have a copy, I, as a member, I do not have a copy. Please, I'm coming. I think that there were recommendations by the auditors who audited the ministries. And they recommended that an amount of $6 million should be retrieved from the said company. We are speaking to the report. My colleague, I was expecting him to ask the auditors what were their point of references when they were conducting that audit. He chose to ignore, and he spoke to a document before him. And he was asking questions or reading to the minister from document that is only presented to him alone. And I don't know where he got the document from.
Honorable member.
Which, Mr. Chairman, please, if you can allow me to land. I appeared here.
Yeah.
I represented my minister.
Right now.
And you gave a specific instructions that the chief director, the finance director, and the company, you want them here. You didn't tell me that the company should write to the committee. You said the chief director, the finance director, and the company involved, you wanted them here. I am surprised that I am here to assist my minister, and my colleague is actually reading from a report purported to be coming from the company. And so when you do that, and the auditors are sitting here, I seem to be lost. So I don't know which one we are speaking to.
Honorable member, a very good standing member of the committee. I made a pronouncement before you started. We are going by the Auditor General's report. So whatever that company has written or not, we are going through Auditor General's report. And as the minister said, he has consulted the Attorney General to advise on it. So that's where we are going. So Attorney General will advise on it, and then we'll go by what the Auditor Generals have said. So what he read is not part of the report.
Whatever we discuss here is being captured by the anwser, and I believe that that will be part of the report that will be prepared by the committee.
Honorable member, that's the way we are going. We are going by the Auditor General's report.
Mr. Chair, the truth of the matter is that this committee wrote a letter to the companies in question. In fact, we've written letters to Libara, we've written letters to Smart Infraco. First was for them to appear before this committee, and they gave us a detailed response, and this came from Smart Infraco because, I mean, like we all said, the initial contract was between the state and Libara, but later it was novated to Smart Infraco, and they are those handling the thing now. So whatever I am referring to are responses that are before this committee. Yes, you may ask for copies of that. These documents came on Friday. These documents came to this committee on Friday, and the only thing that you needed to do as a member was to ask your leader, ask me that you want copies, and I'll make them available to you. But you can't be in these two shoes. You have sworn an oath to be a member of the ministry, and now you are challenging on a committee works. I don't think it is proper. I mean, nothing untoward has happened, and what we seek to do is to find out the truth and how we are able to save the state money. That is all we are interested in this committee. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, honorable members, I have ruled on it. We are going by what the Auditor General has given us. And if we have any issues, the ministry has any issues, you are going through the Attorney General. Let it say the way that it is. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Chairman, just to announce that per the request that came, I have forwarded to yourself, the chair and the deputy vice chair, the original contract, the first addendum and the second addendum. I've sent them electronically to you. I would be grateful if you can confirm receipt of same.
Yes, I can confirm receipts of those reports, and I think it's the same contracts that Smart Infraco and the others sent to us when they responded to it. But it's just a word of advice. Usually, when you are out with your minister and your minister speaks, that is final. This is just a word of advice, because I have also been where I have been a deputy minister, and usually when we go out and your minister speaks, it is final. This is just a word of advice. And I think you spoke to us clearly. You said you were going to carry out A, B, C, and D. The chairperson for this sitting ruled and said, for us, we are following the Auditor General's report, so that irrespective of what has been said here, it is the Auditor General's report that we are following. I also made I agreed with you on certain portions of it that clearly, for me, I'm not comfortable with the whole costs being applied to the way to the revenue the way it was done. So I also agree with you that we should validate the costs and then come out with the actual that truly they owe the states or whatever it is, and then we can make progress and move forward. That should have been the end of the discussion. So, Minister, thank you very much. Just a word of advice. We've been there.
Okay, let's make progress. Let's go to the next infraction. It's on paragraph 1471, and OPK will handle that one.
And this has to do with some unsupported payment to Smart Infraco, 6,755,175 Ghana cedis. Minister, December 20th, 2023, your ministry paid 6,755,174.94 to Smart Infraco Limited for a connectivity platform. The issues the auditors have with this payment is that there were no supporting documents. no evidence of services rendered, no certificate of work done, and no expenditure justification. Are you able to tell this committee if I mean, what your response is on this infraction, and we can take it from.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just so that the records bear this out, this did not happen under Sam George, but at the ministry, yes, by my predecessor in 2023. This happened in 2023, just so that the records bear us out clear, because we won't superintend over such action. But we have followed up. We've followed up, and NITA, which is the implementing agency on this project, has been asked to submit all the documentation on the project. They've submitted a closure of project report to us. The letter by which they send that to us is NITA/MOCD/VAS/20/12/22. And that was dated 22nd December 2020. We've sent it to the audit services for verification. I don't know if they received it and what the status of that is, but NITA has provided us some documentation relative to that payment. Again, bear in mind that NITA is under new management, and so whatever they've been able to retrieve, we forwarded to the audit service pending their verification. If they verify the amount, then I believe that will bring closure to it. But if they raise queries on it, then we'll need to further dig into that matter.
Auditors, are you able to confirm whether or not you received documentations to the effect of these payments?
Honorable Chair, will be pleased if they have it here, they provide the documents to us, because we don't have it now at the moment.
The minister is is a digitized man, so he can send you soft copy. This is why you have a hard copy.
Again, if they want us to provide them a soft copy, a digital copy, we can. But I also have a physical hard copy here, which I can table before the committee for the review of the auditors. But then it has to be authenticated and verified. But this is what we've received, and we have a copy here.
Thank you. I keep on referring to the response that Smart Infraco gave us. Probably maybe we should make copies available to you, so that at least we are able to reconcile and get there. Because in their response, they deny this payment. They deny that these payments were made to them, but they claim that they could justify for the payment. No, I'm coming. They also claim that the Auditor General's report miscalculated or misclassified the payment, arguing that it was not part of the e-government infrastructure commercialization contract, but rather a different project altogether. And so we will share with you their response. We'll share with the auditors their response, so that we can reconcile and have a certain agreement with respect to this, so that we know what the real challenge is. What is it that, if we have to make any reference to the Auditor General, to the Attorney General, what is it specifically that we are doing? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I am guided, and I'm grateful to get a copy of the responses. However, I just want to make the point clear. My fidelity is to the state. It's not to a company. And once my fidelity is to the state, as a member of Parliament myself and a former member of this committee, I understand that what forms the base material for my decision making is not a company's rendition and response, but the Auditor General of Ghana's report. And so long as the Auditor General of Ghana has raised questions about that payment, even if a private company thinks that they have challenges, they can have redress to the courts, to clear their names. And sitting in this committee as a member, we've had cause to ask companies to go to court to clear their name and challenge the decisions of the Auditor General. But sitting in this chair as Minister of State, my fidelity is to the Ghanaian people and the Auditor General's report, and that says that that payment was questionable. We have raised the documentation that we have found. I think that we should allow the Auditor General to verify and authenticate and vet it. And then on the basis of the rule of the decision of the Auditor General, we can proceed. but not on the opinion of a private company. Thank you.
Certainly, we agree with you 100%. I mean, we sit here with the sole aim to protect the public purse. How we do that, I mean, we won't be members of this committee, is that we interrogate the matter beyond what the Auditor General has given us. Then we can now report to Parliament, the plenary, what indeed the Auditor General meant in the committee. In doing so, your feedback, that of the Auditor General, and in this case, the last reference where we brought on board the companies, all matter. So we respect your response. We also appreciate the response from the company. We also rely heavily on what the Auditor General tells us. Then we can now conclude. And that is why I was making reference to the response that they gave us. And we are ready to even give you a copy so that it can help you in your reconciliation and even in your moving forward. So for us, it's about the state. And I know for you, it's about the state. That is why we are here. Thank you very much.
All right. Just like I ruled earlier, we are going by the Auditor General's report. Whatever the company has given to us, we'll allow them to go through it with the Attorney General and the Auditor General. We are here reviewing Auditor General's report. Okay, now let's move on. Ministry of Communications. Let's go to the Postal and Courier Services. And Honorable OPK, you go through the financials.
Thank you very much. And Minister, I want to refer you to page 910. And it's on your financial performance with respect to Postal and Courier Services Regulatory Commission. So your commission ended the year with a deficit of 259,631, as compared to a surplus that was that you made in 2021, and this represents a decline of about 131% in your financial statement. Are you able to give reasons for this decline? Thank you.
Madam Chair, again, archival material, because this predates us coming into the office, but the understanding we have is that in 2021, there was some level of enforcement activities that happened. And normally when you do enforcement activities, you have revenue inflows, because when you carry out an enforcement activity, people come and register to stay on track. And so that would have accounted for the spike you saw in 2021 vis-a-vis the other year, where it looked as though there was really not much of enforcement done that year. So you'll see that most times from the earnings. But again, like I said, these are based on information available to us since we're not in the seat at the time.
Thank you, and I appreciate your response. But if you look at the statement, it looks like in 2021, the subvention that came to the commission was 1,740,369, as compared to that of 2022, which was 758,000. And we know that, I mean, yes, but if you take a look at your internally generated funds, there seems to be some very slight, about 19% increase. So I think the difference is coming from the subvention, and I think that comes from the Ministry of Finance and what comes to you. Yes, so
with the greatest of respect, I think that Honorable Abena would have been the best person to answer this question. She was Deputy Finance Minister or Minister of State at the Finance Ministry at the time. She decided with her former boss not to give financial clearance for replacement of staff, and that's what led to the drop in the compensation vote. So this is a question that Abena should be answering, not me.
You are out of order.
Minister, financials. Minister, your your income also decreased some 35%. And the auditors say it was mainly due to decrease in government subvention. I think we have addressed this. But all in all, I just want to find out from you, what is it that is changing now in the Postal and Courier Services Regulatory Commission to ensure that they rely heavily on their IGF instead of relying on government to be giving them funds? What is it that we are doing there?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We've undertaken a review, a holistic review of the Postal and Courier Services Regulatory Commission as part of our broader policy overhaul that we're doing in the ministry. I believe that their legislation is over 20 years old. And so we're currently reviewing their legislation. It's part of the proposals are to move them just beyond postal and courier to even take care of logistical services. Because when you look at the evolution of time right now, you realize that a lot of logistical sub-service providers are actually doing now postal and courier work. And so they're outside the remit. It's a gray area. They are not they're not captured by the transporters, and they're also not captured by the postal and courier area. So we're looking to fine-tune the legislation to ensure that we make it Postal, Courier, and Logistical Services Regulatory Commission. That work is going on. It will come. We've put out the request for inputs. At the ministry, we've put out the bill, the draft bill, and asked people to make their inputs. But a few months ago, the commission decided to start rapid enforcement of registration. And I had cause to speak to the commission to halt the process because we thought that there was the need for further stakeholder engagement. Let us be clear. We would instill enforcement of the laws for courier services. We can't have a situation where we've had instances where people have ordered food, for example, and the food arrives and the meat on the food has been eaten. You know, people order things and courier companies do not deliver them in the manner in which they ought to. So we need to have some regulation of the space. And you can only enforce this in collaboration with the Ghana Police Service. But what we've chosen to do is to put a moratorium. We spoke with the board and the executive secretary. We've put a moratorium till the end of the year for everyone to get themselves licensed, either as an independent operator or under a fleet management operation certification. And then what we've also done is I've made the case to the Postal and Courier Services that we're looking at the job of young men and women. And when I met with the Postal and Courier unions, the associations, with the MD and the board, one of them told us, I said, look, don't look at us as criminals. See us as hustlers who are struggling to survive. Because many of these young men who do courier services, but for that job, will be unemployed and will pose a security risk to our country. So we've spoken to them and said, instead of charging, was what, 1,070 Ghana cedis to register in one go, we've decided that we're giving them a 50% moratorium on the 1,000 Ghana cedi to allow proper uptake. Because the reality is, if he says a motor rider who most likely earns 50 cedis as his take home, because again, people should not look at what they charge per delivery. The motorbikes don't belong to them. They pay. And so at the end of the day, the person goes home with 50 Ghana cedi. If you are charging him 1,000 Ghana cedi, that's 200 days worth of earnings.
Yes, sir, please, are they under the Fees and Charges Act? If they are they supposed to charge that amount for
it's been approved under the Fees and Charges, and so we're working to drop it in the current Fees and Charges that will come, and that's why we've put a moratorium on enforcement, and then said that once we are able to pass the new fees in the first 3 months of next year, we would expect that all of them do the needful and register. Enforcement, we announced, will start on the 1st of April 2026. So we're hoping to get the fees dropped in the fees and charges, because again, like I'm saying, if you look at the reality, those fees appear to be too punitive. If you're asking a rider to pay equivalent of 200 working days of his earnings as a regulatory fee, that in itself lends to people not complying with the regulation. So we are trying to drop it to make sure that it is more friendly for people to be able to. We've asked them to also create USSD codes where people don't have to walk or ride to their offices before they can register. You can register using a short code and your Momo and get the PIN. And then we've also asked them to, just like the insurance companies have done, where the police are able to check, in this case with the chassis number of the motorbike or the tricycle, if they enter it into the system, it will show whether they are a valid license holder or not, so that the harassment of these young men on the road will cease. We want to enforce the law, but we want to do it with a human face.
I reserve my comments for now.
But so currently, what is it like? For instance, I know that now people do no longer go to the passport office to pick their passport. Do you have any collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs where this gentleman can get some deliveries directly from the state, and it to be continuous and has that assurance? If you have not looked at it, it's something that you should consider. Yeah.
Well, Madam Chair, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible for the passports. My respectable brother and colleague, Honorable Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, decided to digitize the entire process, and in doing so, put out a public tender for courier companies to put in a bid. The Postal and Courier Services Regulatory Commission is different from Ghana Post. The Postal and Courier Services Regulatory Commission is the regulator. Ghana Post is a player. So it's like having NCA as a regulator, and if we had a Ghana Telecom operating. So the Postal and Courier Services has nothing to do with the courier services of the passports. But we asked Ghana Post to put a bid. They did, and they won in 7. Is it 7? How many regions? So they won the bid to deliver in 7 out of 16 regions. However, in reality, the Ghana Postal Company, Ghana Post, is doing the delivery in all 16 regions. Because even those who won the other lots are relying on Ghana Post infrastructure to do the delivery. So Ghana Post, and because of that project that we are executing for the passport office, and if I'm not mistaken, we've delivered over 70,000 passports, close to 80,000 passports in less than 6 months of running this operation. Ghana Post has had to retool and get more riders. So we've picked up a few of these young men under the Ghana Post, retooled, we're retooling and trying to even expand our fleet, but we're working on it. But then Ghana Post is regulated by the Postal and Courier Services Commission.
Yes, I understand all of this. My interest was the last bit of your response. How we are able to get these young boys some work to do. And once Ghana Post now has a bigger mandate and they are employing a lot more people, most of these young boys will now get something formalized, and be earning something at the end of it. So that's why I brought up this suggestion, and I'm happy that Ghana Post is involved in this whole delivery process. Thank you.
All right. Let's move to the next. Let's move to the infraction. Management issue, failure to declare assets and liabilities. Section 1 of the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act, 1998, Act 550, also states that a person who holds public office mentioned in Section 3 of this Act shall submit to the Auditor General a written declaration of all properties and or assets owned by him and all liabilities owed by him, whether directly or indirectly. It further states that the declaration shall be made by the public officer before taking office, at the end of every 4 years, and at the end of the term of his office, and shall in any event be submitted not later than 6 months of the occurrence of any of the events specified in this subsection. These 3 people were supposed to declare their assets. Hamdratu Zakaria, Executive Secretary. Laureatu Musa Saka, Deputy Executive Secretary. John Olite Otute, Director, Learning, Licensing and Regulations. Have these people declared their assets now?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, 2 of the persons are no longer with the Commission. The first person, Hamdiatu, who used to be the Executive Secretary, and then the second person, Loratu, who used to be the Deputy Executive Secretary and a member of the NPP's communications team. Both of them are no longer with the Commission, and so we are unable to reach them to submit their report. Honorable Chair, I'm saying that there are 3 individuals. The first was the Executive Secretary, Madam Hamdiatu, who is no longer with the Commission because she left in 2025. She was relieved of her post in 2025. The second person is Loratu, who was Deputy Executive Secretary and a member of the NPP's communication team, who has also left the Commission by virtue of the change in government. The third person is Mr. John Olete Otute, who is Director, Licensing and Regulation. He is still with the Commission, and we have ensured that he has submitted, done the declaration of his assets, and we have here a copy of the receipt from the Ghana Audit Service. I don't know if the auditors have it, but we are ready to submit this as well for the benefit.
Auditors, could you confirm the statement that you have a copy of the third person?
Yes, Honorable Chair, the third person has declared her assets, and then we also have the Executive Secretary also declared assets. Thank you very much.
All right, let's go to Ghana Digital Centers Limited, and Honorable Abena asare will handle the financials. It's on paragraph 925.
So this is the financial performance for the year 2023. And the year 2023, Honorable Sam George was not in government. So I have stated that for you. You don't need to state it when you are answering any question, Minister. Minister, I think I don't have much issues with them, except that they are, previously in 2022, they could cover their short-term liabilities by 3 times, but it's dropped to 2. So maybe they are not doing something right. I looked at their expenditure, I looked at their profits, and it looks like they are rather increasing their loss. 2022, they made a loss of 4 million. 2023, a loss of 4.2 million. So that's that they check these things, because in this day of digitalization and everything, a lot depends on them, and they can make lots of money, raise lots of revenue to help the communications ministry carry out its mandate. So they should look at whatever it is that is taking away so much in terms of expenditure and try as much as possible to fit within the revenues that they raise. Minister, I think on the whole, that's the piece of advice I want to give to Ghana Digital Center. That a lot depends on them. They can do a lot. But the fact that they are raising revenue doesn't mean they should spend all the revenues that they are raising. But they should put some to good use